the lawn hater, but here's my landscape in Waverly. I got lawn and I just planted some more grass here a couple weeks ago. So we'll talk a little bit about that. It's not the lawn itself that's the problem. It's the way we manage it. And especially in suburbia on new properties, we overfuss with the lawn. So here's just a thought. Much like the 3 R's of waste management, reduce, reuse, and recycle, we can do the same for lawn management, in my opinion. And I would put the 3 R's as reduce, replant, and rethink. Reduce the amount of lush lawn, reduce the inputs in lawn management, replant with more eco-friendly and resilient ground covers, and then just rethink how we see the lawn. This is the hard part where we got, okay, I'm going to make my mind think this through a little bit differently. A couple quick definitions. Here's the definition of a lawn: an area of ground planted with grasses or other durable plants such as clover, typically managed with a lawn mowing, right? That's kind of the whole thing about a lawn. And then we might think about turf grass versus ground cover. Turf grass is a ground cover, but not all ground covers are turf grass. There are alternatives. And we're going to try to think this through a little bit. Think about this. This is just a few fun facts about the lawn. There are 40.5 million acres nationally in the US of lawn, 63,000 square miles, which is the size of the state of Georgia. That's a lot of lawn, isn't it? Approximately 60 to 70% of the land area of any community is mowed green space and lawns. Turf and landscape is a $70 billion a year industry or more. Now, until the 20th century, lawns were desired, but were primarily for the rich. Most homes didn't have a lawn. They had vegetable gardens and probably a goat or some sheep or a cow munching on grass. They had trees and shrubs and maybe edible fruits. In the late 1800s, though, mechanical lawn mowers were invented and they became popular, so that by the early 1900s, front lawns started to become popular in a lot of our communities as the mowing equipment improved. And then it really changed with the advent of World War II. After World War II, we had figured out technology on herbicides and mowing, and people were moving to the suburbs, and all of a sudden everybody wanted a lush lawn around their landscapes, and our technology allowed that to happen. But in my opinion, recently there's been a noticeable societal pushback against some of our lawn infatuation. I read a lot of articles about it, and now they're in common literature or common sources. So here's the costs and the concerns that we're talking about. $40 billion a year to manage our lawns and maintain them. And then time costs, an average of 150 hours per year per lawn manager. This is a big one, water consumption. Nationally, 7 billion gallons a day in the summer. In Nebraska, 300 million gallons per day. And in Lincoln, 50 million gallons per day go out to sprinkling and spraying on our lawns. And think about Lincoln. We pump that water out of the Platte River, move it 40 miles to Lincoln, treat it so we can drink it, and then we dump it back out on the lawn so unceremoniously. So that's 70% of the summer water use in Lincoln. Here's another statistic: 800 million gallons of gasoline are used to manage lawns. Air pollution, up to 40 billion pounds of CO2 pushed into the atmosphere from lawn management. Noise pollution. Think about all the mowers, trimmers, and blowers. 3 million tons of fertilizer and 30,000 tons of pesticides, resulting in quite a bit of non-point source pollution of waterways. There is herbicide harm to trees and other non-target plants. There's pesticide harm to beneficial insects, including our bees, as well as birds, wildlife, and people. 7,500 mowing injuries a year. And then our landscapes really in our suburbia have become sterilized. They're concrete, they're houses, and they're lawn primarily. We can do better. Just a visual example of what some of those lawn care impacts amount to, especially tree trimmer damage, when you're wearing a hazmat suit to manage something, that should be a clue that maybe we're not doing it right. But like I said earlier, we're not here to say that the lawn is all bad and that we need to get rid of it completely. Far from it. Here's the benefits of lawn: places for recreation and relaxation. Who doesn't like chasing the dogs on the lawn or playing some disc golf? Let's be real, the lawn has aesthetic appeal and mental comfort for a lot of people. It frames the rest of the landscape. Public safety is the big one in a community. We have to be able to see across streets, around corners, into the park. So everything can't be trees and prairie, right? We can think about the lawn as also giving us safety from animals. Like if you live where bears are common, that might be an important thing, but also it helps keep squirrels away and raccoons a little bit, that kind of thing. So this is a big one that was touched on us earlier this year in Nebraska Forest Service: safety from wildfire. All those Nebraska wildfires this year really torched a lot of properties and houses, and the ones that survived usually had some cool green lawn around them. Cool lawns can help cool us in summer. Number 8, I call this cathartic putzing, where we just are putzing around the yard, putting order to the world. That can be cathartic to a lot of people, especially my neighbors. Property values and resale value, that's a real thing for landscapes and people trying to sell their houses. We mentioned the economy of lawn and landscape care. That's a $70 billion a year industry. That employs a lot of people in every town. And number 11, better than nothing for rain absorption, erosion control, and flood control. I'm sure there are a lot of other benefits I haven't listed. If anybody wants to chime in and add those to the chat, just do that. We're not going to shy away from proclaiming what the benefits are from the lawn, because there are many. The big problem isn't the lawn itself, but it's how we manage it. Striving for that lush uniformity really gets us into a problem. And maybe what drives it? The two things, in my opinion, are peer pressure. I've got a neighbor across the street who comes over and bugs me quite a bit, and he always points out a weed in my lawn, and he's trying to pull those weeds, and I charge him $5 every time he does. And then there's just our innate desire to put order to the world. I think that's part of our DNA. We swept our caves out when we were cave dwellers, and now we mow the lawn in front of our houses. So let's get into this and let's rethink the lawn. And these are just a few suggestions I would throw at you quickly here to maybe wrap our heads around how we might rethink it. This isn't rocket science. If Justin can figure it out, anybody can. But the number one thing would be of low-hanging fruit is just reduce the management inputs. Number 2, relax and let Mother Nature take its course, maybe with some strategic nudging. Number 3, convert the lawn to other things. Number 4, reduce the total amount of lawn. And number 5, plant more trees and shrubs. Let's take a quick look at this. Keep the current lawn as and reduce management inputs. That's the low-hanging fruit. You don't have to do anything else other than less water, less fertilizer, less pesticides, less mowing. Just be accepting of what that brings. Use rain sensors, recycle lawn clippings, don't haul anything away, don't strive for perfection. Maybe don't let your 4-year-old child either run the lawnmower just yet, but that's another story to think about. Number 2, relax and let Mother Nature take its course, I would say with some strategic nudging. So strive for a polyculture lawn. That means just accept other things that come along, like white clover, or here's trefoil, or here's violets. So if we accept a mix of mowable species that come naturally on their own, or that we've added by seed, that's okay. Those are going to be really good, sustainable, resilient lawns. And then we relax on all those other inputs, we're going to have really nice green but more biodiverse lawns that we can be proud of. Or you can do number 3 here, convert the lawn to other things like buffalo grass or blue grandma or a grassy sedge meadow. Again, think about polyculture, the lawn, as opposed to just a monoculture, but we can kill off the old lawn and plant other things. So that's number 3, start over. Keep this in mind that more deeply rooted lawns absorb and filter more stormwater. The roots go deeper, they make greater challenges for stormwater to absorb. And some of our best plants to do that are our shorter native grasses, buffalo grass, blue grama, and side oats grama. Side oats grama is one that we do not use enough of, in my opinion, as a sun tolerant or a sun area lawn alternative. Bruce Hoffman, are you on? I'd like to have you come on here and maybe unmute yourself and talk about, I wanted to ask Bruce to come on and throw out a few thoughts he has about buffalo grass. He lives in McCook. It's been hot and dry all year. Here are some images that Bruce gave me yesterday. He owns Common Sense Nursery in McCook. But Bruce, if you can you get on here and just talk about—
Can you hear me?
Think about buffalo grass. Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, and I don't know if my pointer, is it showing up right now on the screen?
I'm not
here?
seeing your pointer.
Okay, that's all right. The one with the barn, the lower left here, and the one on top, they're taken from the same spot. This is when the buffalo is obviously dormant on top there, where you see the white fence in the background. Although I don't know exactly when that was, because I see the trees in the background have their leaves. So it could be fall, it could be early spring when it's just coming out of dormancy. But the lower left, that is sans water. That's no watering, and that's what buffalo can look like. It's the same area, if that makes sense. If you just pivot from the barn, you would see the fence there in that one tree. But so that I didn't have pictures exactly of buffalo. I have a lot of pictures of my place though, so I'm taking them all the time. Anyway, but I thought this is a good illustration. That was a season, the one in the lower left, where I didn't mow it all year long as an experiment. I probably wouldn't do that again. There's too much of it that dies out when that happens. So you do need to mow it. And when people say how much, depends on how much water you get. And this area on top there, as an example, and I'll hush up real quick here, but the area on top there, I like I say, I don't water it, and it will maintain that green there. So like you're seeing, the one lower right in our trees, that obviously that's where it does get water. And we are so dry here. Supplemental water sometimes is necessary, but if you can water once in the summer deeply, that's a huge savings over the cool season grasses that I have around my house. And the mowing, you can some of that stuff I mow twice a year, so twice a season. If we were to have a rainy season, I would mow more often.
Yeah, Bruce, how did you get such a nice stand? Did you seed it or plug it or both? Or
we seeded it, and it's not absolutely maintenance free, but we advocate for an application of glyphosate. That the trade name would be Roundup. Glyphosate with a pre-emergent early in the spring. It'll get rid of your cool season grasses, your winter annuals, your mustard, your henbit, all of that jazz. Does a good job on it. You get a warm day before the buffalo has taken off. I don't know if you can see my arms flailing here. I'll try to keep them down.
Yeah.
But anyway, but we do, and we take care of a lot of buffalo because we have seeded a lot of buffalo. But that is the most critical application you can make that does virtually no risk of doing any harm to buffalo, to the grass, or to neighboring plants.
Is that about in March or so?
Yes, correct. Could be February out here.
Okay.
You need a couple nights where it's maybe not going to freeze. I mean, it really is. As soon as and we get those quite often in January and February out here, if you can believe that, if you watch the weather. But that's all it takes for those winter annuals to become active. Your henbit, your mustard, the ones that are typically a problem, your wild oats or June grass, whatever you want to call it.
There's a question
You can
here.
eliminate all that with one easy application. Sorry.
Here's a good question, Bruce. Can buffalo grass be planted in community yards, town yards?
Absolutely.
What do you say, Bruce? Are you like in McCook there? Do you help people plant
I
buffalo
think
grass?
he's having a technological issue.
Okay,
Do you want to go ahead and answer?
yeah, I like Bruce's, I think Bruce will be the first to admit buffalo grass isn't for everyone and for every site, even in McCook. It's not gonna tolerate heavy shade. And so maybe in the center of town where you have some shade, I think Bruce even has a little bit of bluegrass lawn at his place. So it's kind of a trade-off a little bit. If you have a lot of open ground that's hot and sunny, that's where buffalo grass makes sense.
But being in town isn't what changes that necessarily. They've got some beautiful stands on campus here,
Yes.
just in very sunny locations.
Yep,
Justin,
Yeah,
Oh.
Bruce, there you go.
I apologize. I had trouble with my sound system here. You had a question there. Can it be
Yeah,
planted? What?
She just asked, can buffalo grass be used in a town yard?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, we see more and more of it here all the time. And the new hybrids, the new varieties are, I like this is the place we take care of on the Medicine Creek. It looks way cool in the winter time when it's all uniformly kind of a yellow hue or whatever. When we get those late, in December when the sun is really in the south there and it's yellow, it's quite it's attractive in the winter time. So I think.
Right on, brother. Yeah. And there we have a question. Do you ever burn it?
We do not, but I suspect you could. I think if you let it go without mowing like I did, that might, be an alternative if you go back to that one picture. But like I say, I think I like it a little better if it's mowed. I think these new varieties actually like to be mowed. So
Yeah, right on. Very good, Bruce. Yeah, I think the one thing I see in eastern Nebraska is there's just more weed pressure from cool season grasses. And so, especially tall fescue. And so sometimes the buffalo grass goes away and the fescue comes in and you got to work a little harder at it. But I would still be an advocate for buffalo grass wherever it makes sense.
While you're on the topic of the new varieties, I've had a question lately come from a couple different people, and maybe this isn't so applicable to you, Bruce, since you're further south, that they've struggled with winter hardiness with a couple of the varieties. And not knowing too much about each person's situation, I wonder if that's actually a winter hardiness issue or just if they didn't get it established in the first place. Has anybody heard any of those concerns?
I've seen dieback after winter myself,
Okay.
dead patches. I'd be lying if I didn't. But now I must say, with this, the red barn on the left, well, they're both the same image, different time of year, same place. This is, and I don't know if it's okay to use names here, but Sundancer, buffalo, we've seeded buffalo for about 25 years, and there's always been the most new and improved. If it's coming out there, it actually is. It is for real. Sundancer blows everything else away. There's nothing else
good.
like.
That's
Good
good
to
to know.
There's also a comment from Erica about how great buffalo grass is for that right-of-way strip between your sidewalk and the road.
we're pretty dry out here west of the 100th. You know, I don't know who's drier than us. If there's somebody, maybe George up in Ogallala, I see him on here. But like I said, I'm not saying in a summer like this, in McCook here, but we've had zero, maybe, you know, I don't know, we've had nothing. It almost looks, if it doesn't get water, it looks like that on the left right now. But when it goes dormant, there is absolutely zero pressure from anything else. Trust me, there won't be any pigweed, any kochia, any of that stuff coming in because there's no moisture there. So
Yeah.
it stays fairly clean. So
Nice. That's a good point. We have a question here. What are good sources for seeds?
see, I don't know everybody in Nebraska. I know who I deal with, so I don't think I don't want to. You know, I mean, like I say, I know who I deal with.
Go to a seed dealer or something
Yes,
like that?
or you could come to McCook, Common Sense. We sell it.
All right, there you go, people.
No, but you can, Sundancer, you can find it. I'd be careful online. I see some that's way pricier than it should be.
All right, very good. All right, Bruce, that was awesome, man. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much
you.
for, yeah, buffalo grass is Nebraska born, raised and bred. So yeah, let's put buffalo grass to more use in our landscapes. Come on, people. Okay, we'll
Before
wrap
we-
this up. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Justin, before we let Bruce go, he's got a project coming up that we're gonna help him with. That I thought we could talk a little bit about.
Okay, sure.
You're gonna put buffalo grass around the hospital, or is it the senior center?
It is our county owned nursing home. And if you're older than 25, probably you know the plight of nursing homes. I happen to be on the foundation board. We were in need of an irrigation upgrade. That kind of went through the roof expense wise this past year. I mean, it doubled in cost. So we started looking for grant money, but we're going to go then with buffalo grass with the same thing with the county. Who could benefit more than the county? To maintain a green lawn, you still need a sprinkler system here, but you can get by watering 2 or 3 times a season. So it'll be a huge savings eventually. And I'm the one begging for money. So I appreciate the interest.
Yeah, that's awesome, Bruce. Well, that'll be a fun project to work together.
There you go.
on.
There you go.
I'm sorry, I know I'm supposed to step in next. I'm trying to help somebody with an audio problem quick, so.
No problem. We'll keep going here a little bit. Rethinking the lawn. So yeah, you could just reduce the amount of lawn and plant other things like a vegetable garden or a rain garden or ornamental plantings, maybe a little bit of prairie, that kind of thing. Here's a shaded area on campus that they put into shade tolerant plants instead of a lawn. Just avoid invasive species, but try to use more native species is maybe something to think about. And then number 5, plant more trees and shrubs. This is a great opportunity to reduce the pressure on lawns and try to how we keep them green and how we manage them. So trees take up space. They offer so many benefits to our community and our own yards. They provide that shade in the summer, and they help keep soil moisture in the ground in a hot, dry year. So think about that. In this same context then, what about mulch? Just beware that if you have these vast areas of mulch and you remulch them year after year, you have weeds that want to get started in there. Mother Nature abhors a vacuum. So she's going to try and plant things in here. You're going to keep remulching that year after year. The mulch can build up. So maybe an alternative would be to start using ground covers and take up some of that mulch in here. You don't have to eliminate it all, but take up some of it at least. Does that make sense to you? This landscape image on the upper right, I shouldn't make fun of it, but this just tells me everything wrong with what we're trying to do in our landscapes. I'll bet none of these trees and shrubs are native to the area. Look at the fussed over lawn. And look at the mulch. They spend all that money to keep that mulch fresh. You're really, really swimming hard upstream against the current of sustainability on these kinds of things. So relax and start working more with Mother Nature. And here's something I'll try to get you to think about just in terms of irrigation, thinking about rainfall and supplementing Mother Nature. I like what Bruce was saying there. We don't need to water every other day in our part of the world to have green landscapes. I would say think about what is our natural rainfall and just try to supplement it, help smooth out the drought periods and the dry periods. So here's the two places I've lived in my life in Nebraska, here in eastern Nebraska, the Waverly area, the last 40 years. And then I grew up out in Kimball. These are two different parts of the world. And in Waverly, we get 30 inches of rain a year, 22 inches in the growing season, and that's almost a 1 inch per week average. In Kimball, it's more like a half an inch per week average, and it can be almost desert drought out here sometimes. So if you're trying to irrigate, let's just mimic Mother Nature and maybe think in terms of a half an inch or a 3/4 per inch week in Kimball, and maybe a half inch to a full inch a week in Waverly. Don't try to be making it Virginia or Florida. Let's embrace the Great Plains where we're at and just smooth out the dry periods. Does that make sense? Some lawn species can be dormant in the summer. Buffalo grass can do that, so can bluegrass. And all lawns should look bad this year in our hot and our drought periods. If they're lush and green right now, we're fussing a little bit too much. So I'll throw at you a few examples of just talking points. This is out in Kimball where I grew up. And I'll be honest with you, I love that the little town of Kimball is a green oasis in the hot summer. I like that there's green lawns. The thing we need to think about is how much input are we doing to make sure all of this lawn is green. So I'm glad we have green lawns. The other side of town, maybe the other side of the tracks, look at this place. They're not doing anything here. And it's just the kochia knotweed that's used as a lawn. And that is not very attractive, is it? I wouldn't want to be this person's neighbor. They're probably just mowing off the curly cup gumweed and the other things that want to grow naturally. So look at the difference between these two landscapes. One is inviting, one is not very inviting. One's going to sell good and resale, one's going to struggle. And the lawn is a big part of that. So what's the happy medium between these two things? This is the home farm out south of Kimball where I grew up. My mom lives there now. And she has just this postage stamp little front lawn that she keeps green and waters and mows. The rest of the farm we let go to Mother Nature more or less. She loves her little garden, a gamble oak tree, and just enough water to keep it green. Another couple things in Kimball. This is the Kimball Arboretum. The woman across the street maintains this little flower bed up against coffee trees, some oaks, concolor fir, and other things. None of this is on full irrigation. She just runs a sprinkler in there every so often. And look at the trees that will survive out in western Nebraska with no supplemental irrigation once they're established. Gamble oak, bristlecone pine, chinkapin oak, ponderosa pine, pinyon pine, spruces, bur oak, hackberry, honey locust, buckeye elm. There's a lot of stuff we can grow and not have to fuss over it with water. And then finally, as we think about out in western Nebraska where the soil pH is high, the watering pH is high, when we dump a lot of that on the lawn, the trees will struggle. Here's a bur oak that's struggling in this high input lawn. Here's a hybrid silver maple struggling in this high input lawn. But ponderosa pine over here, more or less on its own in this landscape is fantastic. And then I'll throw this at you. This is on the eastern end of the state. This is my other experience, my yard in Waverly. I'm like the plumber with leaky pipes. My yard's a hot mess, but I wanted to show you that I have lawn and I need lawn. I want lawn, not just because my wife tells me we have to have it, but we have a grandson, we have pets come around, and we like the look of the lawn setting off the rest of the landscape. These are little landscape beds that I push to the edges of the lawn. I even replanted lawn this summer after my wife and I added this front porch project to the home. So lawn is important. Here's a couple other images on the right of what I'm doing in the front yard. These downspouts are all running through this little water channel to the edge of the property, and they soak through lawns, and they never reach the street. That storm water comes off this roof, never reaches the street. It all soaks into this landscape and the lawn. Same thing on the other side of my house. My backyard is really a hot mess. You wouldn't want to come here to learn how to do the lawn because it's always spotty and drab and half dead. But I use my backyard lawn to walk on to get to other parts of the landscape. We put chairs out around the little fire pit. We enjoy our lawn, and I'm constantly trying to get it reestablished under the shade of this bur oak and a big white ash trees. But it's okay. I don't mind that it's spotty and drab and has other things in it. And then I'll show you what we do in the Waverly Park to think about our lawn. This is the Wayne Park Arboretum that I help manage. It's an arboretum with literally dozens and dozens of types of trees and shrubs and prairie plants. And so we're trying to be relaxed about this landscape here. Erica Carlson is on. She could vouch for that. She lives right by the park. She helps me pull weeds sometimes. So in these landscape beds, we try to use native plants, shade-tolerant plants, drought-tolerant plants. And we've come to this point in the evolution of the park to where we put up with a lot of weeds. A lot of people don't like that, but we're trying to be more sustainable and resilient. Under the shade of trees, we will plant ground covers, tie them all together and not try to mow in there. We use tree and shrub beds to separate lawn from areas along the pathway, and they put right by where people walk. This is where they get to enjoy the best trees and the flowers and the shrubs. And then we try to plant these little vignettes of prairie-inspired landscapes. This is a little tall prairie area on the south end of the park. This is an area we planted just last fall, and we're babying along this year in the drought. Which brings us to this, what do we do about the park lawn? There's a lot of lawn in the park, and it's critical for enjoying the park. There's games and activities. Disc golf is really hugely important in our park, so we want lawn. Well, whatever they used as a seed mix years ago has been a really resilient seed mix of tall fescue. It's pretty coarsely bladed. We have clover within it, so we try to keep that clover coming along. In other areas of the park, there's quite a few mowing tolerant weeds like buckhorn plantain or black medic or even knotweed, things like that. So we're not trying to be pristine, and it works for us in this public space. Years ago, I had to get on them pretty hard a couple times because they would spray for weeds, dandelions especially in the spring, and we ended up with a lot of herbicide damage. So I've had to shift them to spot spraying in the fall, and it has worked out pretty good. This is what I was touching about on weed allowance in the park. These are weeds that we more or less just live with in our landscape beds. We're not going to try to fight them. That doesn't please everybody, but we don't have enough weed pullers to keep up with everything, and we still want biodiversity. This is the other end of town, the other side of town, the north side of town in Lawson Park, where we're trying to recreate more just a prairie-themed landscape out around the ball fields. At the Waverly High School, we planted a prairie-inspired learning garden that the FFA teacher uses for plant ID and education. That's what we do in Waverly. Not everybody loves it, but we're trying to capture little spots here and there that can be more biodiverse and not so much focused on the lawn and lushness. Here's just a few more landscape examples to think about. Here's some kind of more traditional suburban lawns and what people are doing to replace them. Here's what I think is a prairie drop seed little meadow in front of this house. And this is a little sedge meadow. I think Carex pennsylvanica or Pennsylvania sedge as a lawn alternative. Some people aren't afraid to really go bold. Here's a tall grass prairie inspired solution around a house. But think about these two things. these landscapes are not no maintenance. They're not an excuse to quit maintaining the landscape. And we need to be remember to be good neighbors. Just because we plant tall grasses that don't need a lot of mowing doesn't mean we stop maintenance. And a lot of people get in trouble with weed ordinances when they just kind of say, I'm going to stop maintaining the landscape. We really do need to try and be good neighbors to each other. And there's ways to do this that are both appealing, attractive and appealing to us generally, but are also appealing to our neighbors. I'll throw out a plug for Ben Vogt here in Lincoln. He has Monarch Gardens and he helps quite a few people convert lawns to more prairie themed landscapes. This is a lot of work. There's nothing simple and easy about it, but Ben is somebody that could advise quite well on how to get this done at a home landscape. A landscape I helped manage for several years was the Ferguson House in Lincoln, the home of the Nebraska Environmental Trust. I haven't been able to get down there this year, but I hope their prairie landscape is trucking along. If we go out in western Nebraska to Scotts Bluff, poke around downtown, you're going to see a lot of really cool landscapes where they've relaxed about lawn and watering and are using more native and drought tolerant plants to do what they want to do, including stormwater capture and filtration off of parking lots. Scotts Bluff Library on the left, this is the ESU 13 where they channeled water off the roof into a rain garden and a bioretention plant. Chadron State College is a fantastic place to go visit. They have a lot of green grass like every college does, but they know how to manage that properly and get a good balance because they have Lucinda Mays as their horticulturist doing such great work, including this prairie themed garden in front of the Sandoz Center. Go up to Wayne State College and look at this bold tall grass prairie little vignette next to a building there on campus. Down in Kansas at the Johnson County Transit Center, they dug up, got rid of their old fescue lawn and returned it to mixed grass prairie. How about parking lots? This is out in Scotts Bluff where this grass is now gone and it's been paved over with concrete. Look what they do at Morton Arboretum in Chicago. They turn it on its ears. They make the water drain into that little strip and they keep the grasses, the native prairie dropseed and other plants wet. It filters stormwater and it helps the plants grow. We've showed this image quite a few times. Fireworks Restaurant in Lincoln. We helped transform this little bioswale area where the water drains off the parking lot into these pipes under the public trail and into the headwaters of Antelope Creek, the most important creek running through Lincoln. So let's filter all the pollutants off of this parking lot and run them through the landscape and reduce that flow. And this is what it turned out to be a couple of years later, and it's still functioning quite well in Southeast Lincoln. So as I wrap up, let me just throw you these 9 things at you in conclusion. Lawns are important to our community landscapes, and we can't really do without them at some level. Lush lawns, though, do require a lot of inputs to maintain and are problematic ecologically. Let's be honest about that. Number 3, let's reduce the total amount of lawn, especially lush lawn. Number 4, let's reduce inputs. You notice I didn't say eliminate inputs. Let's reduce inputs, mowing, watering, fertilizer, and pesticides. Let's strive for a polyculture view of our lawn, species diversity, and relax about benign weeds. Add clover, invite other plants in. It's okay. The world will keep turning even if some weeds end up in our lawns. Let's convert some high input lawn to low input alternatives like buffalo grass, grassy meadows, trees and shrubs, rain gardens, vegetable gardens, landscape beds, etc. We can have a lot of fun with this. Number 7, let's better manage our irrigation systems. We've got to use rain sensors and then have the mindset that we're only going to irrigate to even out natural rainfall, not to make Nebraska look like Virginia, okay? So we're not striving for lushness, we're striving for just healthy landscapes. And lawns actually should be dormant or even drab brown in drought periods. If we're good stewards of this precious resource we call water, our lawns need to reflect that in a year like this. Number 8, mow high, less often. And then number 9, recycle everything. Let's not keep hauling it away to the landfill. That's precious nutrients we can put back onto our landscapes if we use recycle mowers and quit bagging everything. All right, you survived that. I will stop sharing. Those are some thoughts we had about rethinking the lawn. I'm sure there are a lot of things that some of you are already doing and have already thought about, but I would say let's encourage our friends, families, and neighbors and our community compatriots to really start to think this through more honestly and aggressively to get us to a better outcome down the road. We're all going to be better for it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah and let Sarah wrap this up with a few thoughts and comments she might have here. Thank you so much, Bruce, for helping us out on this. And Sarah, take it away.
Okay, before I go into my stuff, we have a question from Betty. If we know the clovers that are specifically native to the eastern part of the state and where we can get seed.
Yeah, the clover thing, the only thing I'm aware of is the old Dutch white clover, they call it. I'm almost sure that's not a native clover. So this is just an opinion. If you're inviting polyculture into your lawns with other species, it's going to be hard to just stick to natives. You're not going to get there. So, but we do have native violets. The violets, the clover, trefoil, things like that are not native, but they help us add nitrogen to the soil. They're good for pollinators. So that's just the way I would put that.
Yeah, they may not be native, but neither is turf grass. And they're
Right,
a lot
yeah.
better. And I've never seen a bee turn up its nose at that white clover.
Right, right.
So, I think we can use those. As far as getting seed, a lot of places I know stock and I lost the name of the one that's in, there's one that's both in Lincoln and York.
For seed?
Yeah.
Yeah, usually you can get Dutch white clover at any garden center, like here in Lincoln, Earl May or Campbell's, or probably even a home center.
Yeah, I feel like I see it a lot of places. Okay. So I'm just gonna wrap this up and talk about some of the resources we have to help you implement all of Justin and Bruce's wonderful ideas. I'm gonna drop some PDFs in the chat. This one is called What is Waterwise? Oh, never mind, I'm not gonna drop them in the chat. Interesting. Sometimes it lets us do that and sometimes not.
Let me see if I can help on that.
Yeah, well, I'll just share my screen and we'll talk about them and we'll make them available to everyone as I figure it out. So this is What is Waterwise? It's pretty much Justin's presentation in a PDF. We've got these first steps to a Waterwise landscape is really just changing what you do with the things that you already have, how we mow, water, and adjust our expectations for our lawn. And then we've got kind of some next steps. And again, it's everything that was in Justin's PowerPoints, aiming the rain, thinking about replacing turf, limiting lawn to where we really do want to need it. And then a little additional ideas thinking about the amount of pavement we've got. So if we've got patios that maybe can be permeable instead of solid concrete. So let's see. I think I may have found a way to share it. But we'll talk about that. So we've been recording this presentation. You all probably noticed it popped up a little late. I was a little slow to the game starting it, so it probably cut off the first 3 or 4 minutes. We will share that everywhere you heard about this webinar. So Justin will share it in Shady Lane. We'll put it on the NSA Facebook page, and it'll be a YouTube link. And when we share that, we'll share that document as well. So anybody who missed the presentation can go back and watch it. You can go back and re-listen to some details if you want to catch them that way. Let's see, what else did you want me to cover, Justin?
What are any events coming up you want to?
Yeah, well, our fall plant sales have started, so we'll be doing those Fridays and some Saturdays through, I think Bob's gonna go into October to sell trees. We've got garden walks coming up in Lincoln and Omaha to feature our Bloom Box and our My Garden affiliate yards. The 13th in Omaha and the 20th in Lincoln of September. And then the other thing we got going on is our NSA awards. We've got several past NSA award recipients in this webinar. So it's time to nominate for those. I think we'll be presenting them in December. So if you have in mind somebody in your community who's been an important tree planter, an important educator, an important volunteer, a leader in community landscape, let's think about nominating them for an award. And I will type in the link. It's plantnebraska.org/awards. Pretty simple. You can see all of the different award categories that we have, and then you can download a nomination form, and you can check who past awardees are too if you think someone has already received one. We tend not to award them twice, so it can be good to check that. But those are always so special, presenting those awards. There's just every year we think we've honored all of these amazing people, and then we learn about more.
Yeah,
So we never run out of people who are deserving of
cool
awards.
stuff going on out there.
Yeah. I think that's it for upcoming events. I know there'll be things being planned here. The Young Lecture will be coming out with that date and theme here shortly. We've got a lot of curators on this webinar, so we hope to see you at the curator meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. And so Sarah, yeah, too, anybody needs to get off, go ahead and get off. But if
Yeah.
anybody has questions or want to have a little conversation about some of this, just chime in. We're welcome to have a conversation here. Bruce is still on for maybe a few minutes, so otherwise feel free to leave. I'd also encourage people to let me know if they have any topics they want covered on a webinar, or if they're willing to be a presenter for at least part of it. We'd love to have both those things. So
Yeah.
reach out to me on that.
Justin, this is Alan and Kearney.
Hello, Alan.
On the buffalo grass topic, I guess I've got a tale of two cities from one city, Kearney. At Yanni Park, it has about a 14-acre lake and wetland, and on the most of the north and west side of that, we have irrigated turf. On the east side, we have a large area, 10, 12, 14 acres maybe, that through mowing height and broadleaf herbicide and time, we have had a succession to buffalo grass. We don't believe it's really ever been planted with buffalo grass, but that's just what's there now. And as a result, we don't need to use as much of the broadleaf herbicide, less fertilizer. It's not irrigated. I guess that's the success story. And then in the chat box, I mentioned a 5-figure experiment with buffalo grass on unirrigated medians. And I think if I recall right, it was about $16,000 we spent on large rolls of buffalo grass sod grown by a reputable buffalo grass sod producer. We put that on the medians. We did all the prep you have to do for new sod or seed. Put that on the medians, used water trucks to water it because it was not irrigated, and failed pretty badly. It didn't, when we were all done, didn't look really a lot better than the untreated medians. That was along Highway 30 on the eastern part of town. And I think with the 2 lanes of reflected heat from the paving on both sides, and just the heat beating down on it and no irrigation, and probably we removed about a foot of soil and brought in better stuff. but that was probably not enough as far as what we would have needed to do to be able to be successful. So that was a place where it didn't work. So it's super, but it's not superhero grass, I guess.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Alan. I remember we helped with a project along Highway 30 in Grand Island a few years ago, and they had a disaster with buffalo grass sod, and it left them with a sour taste for buffalo grass, so they shifted it all out to irrigated lawn again, and that was a bad.
I feel like I also see, I mean, nothing really handles being piled up with, sand and road trash very well.
Yep, salt.
A lot of those more neighborhood right-of-ways seem to work pretty well as buffalo grass, except there's one that I drive by frequently where that's just the corner that catches the sand pile, and it is struggling real hard.
I really like
I would
what Al
add,
said there about that, how that shifted over time, and you didn't even plant the buffalo grass at Yanni Park, and here it is. I've noticed that a few times too. It creeps in. Does a bird bring the seed? I don't know what's going on. Go ahead, Bruce.
no, I was gonna say kind of a shift here, but since we've started pre-soaking the seed overnight before we drill it, our success has gone through the roof. And I think if you're short of water, hauling it, I mean, you aren't gonna. I think that may have contributed to it. So I'm not, whatever.
Right on. Yep.
But soaking the seed overnight, it has an extremely hard shell. If you're depending on rain and watering it once, and I mean, you're not going to have very good germination. So
Yep.
Well, yeah, this is,
Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
well, no, just, when we built a new church in Milligan, I think it was finished in 15. There is this is the last week that they're selling sod put down of buffalo grass, and a couple in the church took it upon themselves to do all the herbicide application, and they have killed it. So now they're talking about going to putting in sprinklers and putting down bluegrass. My talk of Waterwise stuff is landing on all deaf ears. So Sarah, I want a copy of that PDF so I can put it on the table for the next meeting.
I will.
So yeah, it's
Too bad,
sad.
Kim.
Yeah,
That's all too common of a story, isn't it?
yeah. Bruce, I wish they would have done just the one application early in the year, but no, they kept redoing fall, spring, everything. So
I do think it's the most critical step in the whole thing. So
Yeah, Bruce, you have it down to a science. I also wonder, Alan, if the buffalo grass sod is a little bit of a hang up. People put it down and they must not water it or care for it, or it sits on a truck 3 days before it's planted. I wonder if that's some of it too.
Well, to bring trees into it, East Highway 30 pretty much has 0 street trees, and there's not trees on those medians either. So there's like 0 shade and dealing with that reflected heat. I think if there was a median on that green screen street behind you, that would be a lot different situation as far as reflected heat because of the trees on either boulevard, either side, and the tree lawn there.
some relief, you bet.
Justin, there at the Blue Springs Trailhead on the Chief Standing Bear Trail, we put in that patch of buffalo grass that's on that old railroad right of way, and we planted it the seed and left it alone, and it's going crazy.
Yeah.
And this year, I mean, it's been there now for 4 years. And then this year too, we let it grow really high to seed, didn't mow it at all. And it's amazing how it's now spreading to other areas. And again, not very little work done to it at all. We just left it alone, no watering or anything.
Yeah, let it do its thing.
As a third anecdote from Kearney, which still doesn't make data, we've had some trail shoulders where there was a buffalo grass mix specified, And for the first 2 or 3 years, we were really doubtful, but you get into about 3 to 5 years and you start to see it. And then it starts to become dominant just by its growth habit and the way that it spreads out and forms that really thick sod that nothing else can really pioneer into.
That's what it took us. It's about 5 years and it's just thick. It's looking great.
I know we're about to run out of time. This is Waterwise. I apologize for another 90-degree turn, but we operate on well water here in our nursery and greenhouse, and we are in the process of we are using such old water now. Some of our plants are unsaleable from the spots, from the hardness of the water, which we didn't have, well, just a year ago. So, I mean, if that does make you think, and I haven't measured my static level, but I suspect it's down. But it is an eye opener, you know, when you realize, hey, our water has changed here. Why is that? And we're drawing it down.
Good point. Yeah, we're using some ancient water in Nebraska now for some of this stuff. Any other comments, thoughts, or topics, pros or cons? If not, we've reached an 1 o'clock hour, and I think people have probably had their fill of a webinar. We'll be back and we'll give you a post when that's going to be later in the month or early next month. We appreciate everybody attending. And again, send us ideas, especially if you're willing to say something online. George, something from Ogallala, maybe. Alan, Dean, Kelly from Columbus. She deals a lot with this. So we'd love anything you suggest. Leanne from Scotts Bluff, throw something out. Otherwise, thank you, everybody. We hope you have a good weekend. Take an extra day off, maybe, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
Have a
you,
good one.
Justin.
yeah,
All right.
you guys too.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.